There was a fire once. But here's the thing. The flames refused to burn upward. They moved sideways, hugging the ground, like a breathing, poisonous snake, slowly crawling toward 31 human lives. Even weirder, firefighters were standing right there, watching it happen, and they had no idea what was going on. This isn't a ghost story. This really happened in 1987 on the London Underground. 7 different investigation teams came in. Every single one of them was completely baffled. Not a single person could explain why the fire was burning sideways. Then, 7 months later, a supercomputer gave them the answer, and everyone fell silent, because that answer revealed something terrifying. Human beings have been studying fire for thousands of years, but up until that moment, we had never seen this form of fire before. It has its own rules, its own path, almost its own intelligence. And those 31 people, they died right inside a blind spot of human knowledge. That phenomenon was later named the trench effect. It rewrote fire safety manuals around the world. It forced every subway station to rip out their wooden escalators. But here's what really keeps me up at night. If the investigators hadn't discovered it that night, the fire underneath the escalator you ride today, it would still be waiting for you. November 18th, 1987. A completely ordinary Wednesday night. King's Cross Underground Station in London. Packed as usual. Thousands of passengers pouring into one of the busiest transit hubs in Britain. A Piccadilly line train had just pulled into the station. Passengers flooded out. They crowded onto an old wooden escalator that had been running for years. Then, a passenger looked down. Through a gap in the escalator steps, they saw a strange orange glow. They thought they were seeing things. They looked again. No, there really was a fire down there. 10 minutes later, the London Fire Brigade arrived. Experienced firefighters took one look, and honestly, they weren't even that concerned. They'd handled fires like this hundreds of times. A few minutes, done. But just as they were about to move in, the entire escalator exploded into flames. A massive column of fire shot straight up into the ticket hall. Smoke and flames swallowed the whole space in what felt like a single second. 31 people never made it out. So here's the question. How did a tiny fire under an escalator turn into a fireball that consumed an entire station in seconds? Right after the fire, professional investigators moved in. Normally, fire investigation isn't that complicated, because fire follows one unbreakable rule. It only burns upward. When flames hit a wall, they leave clear burn patterns wider near the ceiling. It's like the fire draws itself a map. It tells investigators exactly where it came from. But this time, on that escalator, investigators couldn't find any logical burn patterns. The marks were completely chaotic. No pattern at all. And what really broke their brains? Every single witness said the same thing. The fire didn't shoot upward. It spread sideways, hugging the escalator steps. That's basically impossible in physics. Hot gases naturally rise. That's a basic law proven since Newton's time. The investigators ran through scenario after scenario. They ruled out one hypothesis after another. 7 full months. No breakthroughs. Everyone was completely stuck. Here's something you should know. Escalator fires on the London Underground weren't new. In the 30 years before the King's Cross fire, over 400 similar fires had already happened. The reason was simple. Back then, smoking bans had just been introduced in subway stations. So a lot of passengers would light up one last cigarette right before getting on the escalator. Cigarette butts and matches would fall through the gaps in the wooden steps. And here's the crazy part. Almost every single time, those small fires just went out on their own. Nobody worried about them. Nobody even bothered keeping records. Investigators pulled apart other escalators in the station. What they found inside was horrifying. Thick layers of grease, mixed with years of dust, fibers, and all kinds of debris. A massive block of solid fuel just sitting there. They took samples back to the lab. They dropped matches into it. Small fire ignites. Then goes out. They tried again. Adjusted conditions. Same result. The fire would burn vertically for a bit, then die on its own. Investigators stared at the ashes and realized they were missing one deadly variable, and that variable was hiding in the shape of the escalator itself. To find the answer, the investigation team brought in the only supercomputer in Britain at the time, the Cray 2. That machine represented the absolute peak of human computing power back then. They entered every single parameter of the escalator into the computer and ran a full simulation of the fire. The moment the results came out, the entire room went silent because the computer showed something no one expected. The fire didn't spread upward at all. It stayed tightly against the bottom of the steps, moving sideways at a fixed angle, exactly as the witnesses had described. So, what actually happened? Here's the answer. The escalator shaft is shaped like a long, narrow trench. It slopes at exactly 30 degrees. That simple structure was the root of the tragedy. When the fire ignited, the hot gases couldn't spread sideways. They were forced to accelerate along the trench. The faster they moved, the lower the air pressure dropped. That created a constant pressure difference between the top and bottom of the steps. That pressure difference acted like an invisible hand. It pinned the flames flat against the underside of the steps. The more the flames were pinned, the hotter they got. The hotter they got, the faster the gases moved. The faster they moved, the lower the pressure dropped. A self-accelerating death loop. People standing outside saw nothing but a small, unimpressive flame in the middle of the escalator. They didn't think twice. But underneath those steps, temperatures had already passed 500 degrees Celsius. Hot gases kept pouring into the ticket hall. They accumulated slowly inside the false ceiling. Building, building, building. Then, at one precise, critical moment, every single piece of material reached its ignition temperature at the same time. In less than a second, a flashover, a massive fireball exploded out of the escalator shaft and instantly consumed every corner of the ticket hall. This phenomenon was officially named the trench effect. It was the first time in human history that a completely new fire physics phenomenon was recorded and named. After the disaster, Britain completely overhauled every subway station in the country. All wooden escalators were torn out, replaced with steel. Heat sensors and automatic sprinklers were installed underneath every escalator. Global fire safety manuals were rewritten. 31 lives, in exchange for one physical law that no human being had ever known before, and in exchange for the safer escalator you stand on today. But every time I think about this, it sends a chill down my spine, because the trench effect didn't start existing after the King's Cross fire. It had always been there. No one had ever seen it happen. No one knew what to call it. How many years had it been quietly waiting? And in how many other places, that we'll never know about, had it burned in exactly the same way? Everyone wanted to figure out just one thing.